Hey, so today's video is all about Lady Urbosa's belt and skirt. We're going to go in detail with everything and always use a reference. I just googled this picture. Okay, to get started, you're going to need some blue fabric. Any fabric that you think kind of looks close to this color. I bought 3 yards. You could either use your floor or your bed. You're going to need a flat surface to lay out your fabric. Once you have that done, you're going to fold a piece of the fabric inside out, kind of, because we're going to do some sewing here. Make sure you have some of these handy. They're sewing pins. Line these up along the side you just folded and connect them so that they're secure. Next, you're going to go over to your sewing machine. If you don't have one, you could hand stitch this, but if you do have a sewing machine, it makes this a much quicker process. All I'm doing here is your normal sewing machine setup. Begin sewing in a straight line all the way down your fabric, remembering to remove the needles that you placed as your guide. So I was lucky enough to have my grandma be a seamstress when I was growing up, and I also saw my mom sewing things, fixing my dresses or fixing a hem on my pants when I was coming up. So I kind of saw a little bit of sewing, but YouTube definitely has some good options to teach you how to sew if this is something that interests you. And listen, by no means am I amazing at this. This is what my lines look like. They would be trash to somebody with a trained eye, but to someone that does not have a trained eye, I think this is fine. I'm good, okay? The next thing you're going to want to do is feed in your band, whatever kind of string you're going to feed into your clothes to tie your skirt around your waist. And right here, I'm just kind of using one of my hair clips to hold my string as I'm feeding it through the loop that I just made around the skirt for the waistline. That's really what I'm trying to do here. So what you're going to do is feed it through, kind of snake it through that border. Then eventually you're going to spit it out right at the end here. And then you're going to give it a nice little tug so that it's all the way through from end to end, and then you can use that as the rope that's going to tie the skirt around your waist. And here's the skirt after I tried it on, and it looks pretty good. I like what I'm seeing, so I'm satisfied. Next, you're going to want to lay the skirt out on your flat surface because you're going to be cutting. Here, I'm just doing my first series of cuts to get the skirt to be on a diagonal because that's how the character skirt is shaped. I tried it on, but it was looking good, but still too long, so I gave it a second trim. And again, I looked at the actual character's outfit, and I saw that the skirt really needed a little more shape, so I changed the shape once more, and this time, yeah, I'm pretty much sold on the way that it looks, yeah. For this next part, I'm just going to seal the ends of the skirt to prevent fraying. And I'm not really good at hemming a skirt yet. That's just not one of my strengths. So hot glue it is. Now for the details on the skirt, I just used some regular white ribbon that I got from the craft store or the dollar store. I mean, you could find these anywhere. And I'm going to hot glue these on the outside of the skirt, just by the, I don't know what that's called, but the outside of the skirt. For further details, I'm going to be using this pattern that I got off of the web. Basically, this is an embellishment that she has on her skirt, and it is a character from the video game. It's kind of like what do you call those things with a humpback? In the desert. What are they? They're called that thing. Anyhow, that's what this character is, and I'm putting it on the skirt. I'm using hot glue for this because it is the easiest and quickest way to get stuff from point A to point B. And after I finished gluing that on, I did make some separate little designs, which are those gold and red circle things. They were very easy to make. I just cut out foam in circular shapes and I painted them gold and red. Then I glued them onto the skirt in the same way. Now we're all done with this. The skirt is finished. Now let's get ready to work on the belt. When crafting cosplay armor, your best bet is almost always going to be foam, EVA foam, or some other type of foam that you can cut through easily. Also, you may need a pattern if you're not very well versed at creating your own patterns. I've created some of these patterns myself, but it's just easier to get a pattern that somebody sells online, so I bought this on Etsy. You can just type in Lady Urbosa cosplay pattern and you'll find somebody selling it. One thing I'll always stress with crafting cosplay armor, take it slow, cut your pieces slowly and make sure that your lines are clean, because that's what makes things connect at the end and you have a nice clean finish. After you've cut out your pattern, you're going to want to trace everything on a thin piece of foam. I use tape to hold down my pattern so that nothing moves, and then you want to cut out your foam. And because this is going to be a belt, I took a quick second to try it on, see if I had the perfect length, and I did, because I did measure this beforehand. So you all got to do a little bit of measuring. But yeah, it worked out pretty good, and it looks pretty neat. Here I'm cutting out a slightly thicker piece of foam to be as my backdrop for that yellow piece I just had. These two are going to be a pair, so I'm going to place that on top and it will all be glued together later. Now for the second part of her belt, which I'll call the flower belt. She has a belt that's comprised of these flower embellishments. So I'll make several little square cutouts of foam and they're all going to be glued together later to make the second belt. This is what I mean by gluing them together. What I did was get a piece of yellow foam, which is a thinner type of foam, and I used it as a bridge to connect the thicker foam, which is the black foam, together. So it's like a bridge to connect the two black pieces. And you just put a bit of glue on both sides, the black and the yellow, and then you press them together, and that's how your belt is going to get made. And here is what it looks like all finished. What I did was put it around my waist to make sure that it fits me comfortably. I also adjusted the black squares into trapezoids because squares sat a little weird on my hips, so I adjusted the shapes. Next, you're going to freehand draw your design, friends. Yes, you are going to be drawing with your Sharpie, starting out with a bunch of little dots on the four corners of each square. I had some googly eyes laying around, which I used a lot, but what I'm using it for now is to help me create my design. I'm going to trace around my googly eyes to make nice straight lines and cute little corners for my design. And you should try this because it does work. And what I'm doing next is creating my flower pattern. What you do is start drawing lines going out from the center to all of your corners to create your flower pattern. Then repeat the same steps for all of your little squares that make up your belt to prepare yourself for the next step, which will include a little bit of heat. Here I have my wood burner. Make sure you're in a well-ventilated space or try to do this outside if possible, because this stuff is toxic. The purpose of this is to create indents following, basically tracing my line art to create the flower petal look. I'm gonna also be rounding the edges of my pattern to create the petals. And now that we're all done, you can see the look that I was going for. They do look like flower petals, and they're all pretty neat because we used our nice little pattern. But let's table that for now and move on to our gladiator piece of the belt. For this, you could use a small bowl. I just grabbed whatever I had on hand, which is a medicine ball. Protect your medicine ball with plastic wrap, then cover the entire top of the ball with painter's tape. Leave no gaps. You only need to cover the top half of the ball, and then you remove everything. It comes off very easily. Once it's removed, you're going to want to trim this down so that the edges are clean, and keep going until you're satisfied with how it looks. Then you're going to want to set it on top of your pattern and see if it's too big. If it's still too large, you're going to want to trim that down even more until it's about the same size as your pattern. Now bring back your curved item, which would be your ball or your bowl. We're going to use this as a base to draw our pattern out. What we're going to do here is just make 4 corners, and I traced the whole pattern on it. You don't have to, just make the 4 corners. And the idea is to flatten this out on the table. You want this to lay as flat as possible. So I'm cutting into my 4 corners, laying them down, pressing them out as I go. And once you get a nice flat kind of surface with it, you need to stop. Don't overcut. At this point, I just cut them in half, and I'm going to work with one side. You actually don't need the other side. And here's why. All you have to do is trace this same one pattern twice. So you're going to tape it down to secure it, trace it, and then you're going to cut it out 2 separate times. Now with number 1 finished, I can create the other piece of foam, just doing the same thing, tracing and cutting out the same pattern. And now we've got the 2 pieces that we're going to be working with. They will inevitably be glued together. And to start off that gluing process, I'm going to make it easier for myself by connecting those pieces and drawing a white line across so that I can just connect those dots as I glue. Forgive me for losing the footage here, but I did go outside and glued these together, and it looks pretty seamless from what I have here, and I loved the result. See how I connected it with those lines across? It made it so much easier. Now, because I didn't want this sucker to, start flattening out or changing its shape, I used the same medicine ball and taped it down on top of it and left it on for about 24 hours. So yeah, I came back to it like 2 days later, basically. After it's been sitting for quite some time, I decided to take it off, and this is what we have, a perfectly circular kind of dome, and that's so perfect. That's literally what I wanted. Next up are the details. We're going to use our X-Acto knife and cut out the details from this pattern, and we're going to create some more foam pieces to put on top of our cute little dome we just made. Oh, this is my favorite part. I love all of this. So you're going to want to test it out, see where you want to glue them first, and then you proceed to actually gluing it. Yeah, here I'm just making my final detail, and then I am just pressing it on with some hot glue. And now you're done with your dome piece, so we're going to move forward to the next step. These are the flaps that kind of hang off of the dome we just made. So we're going to trace our pattern and use a ruler to help us make straight lines with our X-Acto knife. Please use a ruler. It's very important that this is clean with clean lines. So the ruler needs to be your guide as you kind of cut down the lines to make these triangles. After you've cut out all of your details, this is what it's going to look like. You've got a bunch of little triangle shaped thingies, and you're going to trace all of these on a thin piece of foam and cut those out as well. This is what I mean when I say use the ruler. You press it against all of those straight lines and you use your knife to cut down. Now that you're all done, you're going to have really clean lines that makes a super nice finish when you actually complete the belt. So you're going to go ahead and put your details on top of the black pieces that you made. I'm numbering them here to keep me organized. That's just how I work. I'm an organized person and I don't like chaos. So we're going to go ahead and just glue all those yellow pieces with hot glue. You don't need any special glue. And once all of these are glued together, you're basically done with this step. Now for some further details. These are kind of like flower petals that I'm cutting out. We're gonna make 5 of those. Something really neat that I liked about this pattern is when you cut a cute little triangle shape and you like pluck it out, when you then put those 2 pieces together, it creates like a little arch and then it looks like an actual petal. Here I am kind of just transferring everything to the foam. And if you just take a closer look at these, they're kind of like arched or a dome kind of shape. They're bent. They give a 3D kind of look, which I absolutely love. That's just because of that little triangle that we cut out. It's so cool. All right, best part, fun part. Now you're gonna glue everything together. Make sure that they kind of overlap as you glue them, and it gives that 3D effect. Keep a reference photo of the belt on hand so you can refer to it as you glue. Make sure that you're gluing on the proper side of the ornament. Now it's time to gather all of your pieces. Make sure everything is in the proper order. Use your reference. And you're gonna glue everything together just like this. For this next part, I'm begging you to go outside because we're working with toxic chemicals, which is contact cement. I don't care if you don't have a backyard. I don't. I went to a public park. You can do that too. Safety. Thank you. So you align your pieces first, put glue on both sides, and then you gently lay them down on each other and press. Make sure this is aligned because you have one shot at this. When they connect, they're not coming apart. So I'm pretty happy with my belt. The next step is I have to figure out how to latch this on so it's an easy snap on, snap off kind of thing. What I decided to do was use these kind of latches. You can take them from an old book bag, kind of like what I did, or you can buy them brand new at a hobby store. They are pretty easy to come by, and you want to glue them to your belt to create something to just latch this belt close, an easy snap off and snap on. Also, what I'm showing here is Velcro. I put Velcro on here for added security. Here I've got my latch on the left and my other latch on the right side, and you can see the Velcro there. All you need to do is snap your 2 pieces together, but then there's this space here that's kind of hanging out, and I didn't like that, so that's why the Velcro was needed. Now you just connect your 2 Velcro pieces, make sure it's strong Velcro, and they'll stay all day and it won't unlatch. What you want from your cosplay is easy functionality, easy snap on, easy snap off. So I told y'all this was a detailed video. So next step, we're going outside and we're spraying this bad boy down, okay? We're gonna do a primer with Plasti Dip, something you don't want to inhale, so go outside. I'm at a public park yet again. After your Plasti Dip is finished and dry, you're gonna hit it with your actual paint now. I'm using spray paint, gold spray paint to start. And don't forget prep work, because you need to put painter's tape all over the areas that you do not want to get color on. And I know it's time consuming, it is, but it saves you a lot of time at the end of the day when you really look at it from like the bird's eye view, you know? And now that that's all finished, we go inside and we start painting. This is my color palette that I'm showing you on the left. And on the right, I'm gonna just make my gold pop a little more by including a little shimmery gold color, which is makes it look a little more yellow. I didn't like how flat it came out from the can, the spray can color, so I'm just making it pop just a little more. Once that's all done, you peel off your painter's tape to reveal your areas that you're gonna paint a different color. These black pieces are actually gonna be red. I didn't capture the whole painting process, but I did use 4 layers of paint for every color that I used. It took me a couple of hours to kind of sit down and play some music and paint everything. And here is the finished skirt ensemble with the belt. It turned out absolutely gorgeous. The colors are fabulous together and it was such a fun thing to make. Make sure you tune in for the next video where I'll be covering how I made the sword. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!